Welcome to the Blue Cafe. We offer stories of infidelity, betrayal, and redemption. Please like and subscribe. Cheers. Now, on to today's story. Help. Husband thinks I cheated, but I didn't and now he wants divorce. I, 35F, went to a party with my female friends 3 days ago. I got carried away and drank alcohol with them, and the party also had other males in them. The next day after partying I woke up at my friend's house with her younger brother giving me food, which freaked me out. I'm 100% sure we didn't have sex, as my female friend reassured me that nothing happened between me and her brother and that her and me had only slept together. After I reached my house I told my 33M husband about what had happened, because he had dropped several missed calls on my phone, and apparently after asking, one of my friends informed him that she saw me and a guy, my female friend's brother, leaving the party together. I tried to explain, but after calmly listening to me he said he got it. He fed our 9 years/show daughter, kissed her on the cheek and left the house to stay with his sister. He also blocked me on everything. I thought we could talk it over, so I decided to give him some space and visit him a week after, but today his sister came by and gave me the divorce papers with a note saying he's done with me. I do not know what I'm supposed to do. I do not want divorce at all. I love him dearly, our daughter also loves him, and I told him I did not cheat, but he doesn't trust me. Please. Any advice is helpful. I'm also Spanish, so please forgive my broken English. Edit, my husband doesn't drink alcohol, and before we got married, he got me to get rid of my alcohol addiction. He told me he doesn't want to bound me so I could drink 6 times a year, but strictly only when he was around to look out for me. Hey up. He is mad at you about the drinking. Honestly, I agree with you. Based on her edit, this makes 100% sense. Up has problems with alcohol. Probably shouldn't be touching it at all, not even once. Best of luck up. Addiction is a disease. Even if it's 6 times a year, if you can't control those 6 times, you have a problem. Up wants to make this not about her, which is why she's framing it about infidelity. I'm not at fault here because I didn't cheat. At least I can't remember, and that my chick friend informed me that I in fact did not sleep with the younger brother, so it must be true if I remember correctly. It should be 0, spelled out ZERO times a year. Alcoholism is never really cured. I've been an opiate addict in recovery for 7 years. I would have loved to be able to do pills 6 times a year in the beginning, lol. I'd be using 2 months at a time, 6 excess a year, lol. If you are blacking out, not even 1 drink is okay. Even if you are the type of alcoholic who can socially drink, all it takes is for 1 spiral and you're back in heavy addiction. Also a recovering opiate addict here, and you're 6 times a year, 2 months at timeline gave me the laugh I needed today. Exactly. Taking it twice a year or it's still part of the addiction. The only thing that stops that addiction is saying no, forever. I hope this is something Up looks back on in a few years. Maybe the comments here are enough to get them started, but probably not at all, but I can hope. Smile. Hell, it took me comments like this from my great friends and family to get my ass in gear. It's also hard to believe that this was the only incident. That's true, but not all alcoholics are the same. I know a few people in recovery who can drink a few times a year and it's not a problem for them. But it does sound like it's a problem for Op. Wanted to piggyback on this. People believe this type of thing because of AA, which is not based on any type of scientific data. It was developed by people in recovery. Going through something definitely gives you insight, but it does not make you an authority on the subject. Going through addiction does not mean you're qualified to treat it. If you read the work of actual doctors and scientists who have studied addiction, they admonish many of the core principles of AA, and in fact say that many of them are actually hurting people suffering from addiction. The idea that once you're addicted you can never control your use of any substances ever again, one-time use will always lead you back to full-blown addiction, counting consecutive days sober, etc. are all principles actual doctors and scientists refute. I'm not commenting on whether or not OP is using alcohol to excess or not, it's probably the real cause for their partner wanting to leave them. But there are people who have had problems with alcohol who can eventually go on to drink in moderation. Back in the day AA did a study of former patients of a government-funded, 12-step-based facility. They found many people left and went on to drink in moderation and live normal lives. They buried the study because it went against one of their core beliefs. The public is very misinformed about addiction, and it's because of AA. This is really interesting. I'm a little less ignorant on addiction recovery thanks to you sharing this. Any knowledge, if it can even be called that, I had was from TV, movies and what the AA preaches. We'll look up some scientific studies though, sounds like an interesting read. Why leave the kid if he is worried enough about her addiction? That's the part I don't understand about his actions. Especially if he has blocked up on everything, how are they supposed to communicate about the kid? How is the kid supposed to contact him? I just don't think I could leave my kid in an environment that was potentially dangerous. I would assume he'll probably try to get custody during the divorce. Removing a kid from its home is hard to do legally. So basically if the dad tried to take the daughter and called the cops would probably say that the kid has to stay in the house unless there were any obvious signs of abuse. This also opens them up to CPS getting involved, which is usually a nightmare for everyone. But I agree, I wouldn't want to leave my kid either. I'm just guessing that he's probably gonna try to get custody later. In my opinion he should have just kicked out OP. We will probably contact a lawyer and try to get full custody. His rationale is probably to not take a 9-year from her home. If OP has a recorded history of alcohol abuse he will probably get full custody in the house so there will be no need to uproot the kid's life completely. But I'm just guessing. I read to the end and I was like it's really more about the alcohol. They're an alcoholic and they broke their sobriety. I know what it's like because my ex is an alcoholic and loving one is one of the hardest things someone will ever do. Edit typos. I was drunk and my wife almost left me. The only thing that won the trust back was action. No more words. No more promises. No more compromising to moderate or cut back. I scheduled counseling. I went to every appointment. I talked to my wife about every appointment and how alcohol was affecting my OCD and anxiety and how it was a coping mechanism. I took responsibility for my bad choices and took responsibility for my recovery. No more blaming others, and no more expecting others to help you. I allowed my wife to look at every receipt for every purchase going forward. If she wanted to smell my breath or take a sip of my soda, to make sure I wasn't sneaking booze in it, she could. I never fought back. It took nearly a year for her to stop doing checks on me. I'm 17 months sober now and feel amazing. The trust was broken so many times, it took a long time and a lot of action on my part to win that trust back. And if today she wanted to do a random booze check on me, I would let her. Because I love her and my kids so much, that I won't let alcohol get in the way of that anymore. If you want any chance to save your marriage, you need to take action now. Stop blaming others and stop expecting people to help you. Take responsibility and prove you can do it with actions. Edit, thanks for all the awards and positive comments. I left an even longer post below with more advice if you find yourself stuck in this situation too. Are you my husband? Just kidding, but wow, that's exactly what my husband did when we were at our lowest. I hope you and your wife are stronger than ever. I didn't believe him when he said no more, as I had heard it so many times before. Words mean nothing. Actions are the only thing that matter. I was done. Told him he needed to move out, and I would take care of his son until he landed on his feet, because I could not let the kid I had raised for 5 years suffer and be homeless because his dad made shitty choices. But this time he meant it. He didn't touch another drop of alcohol. He cut contact with his social circle completely, restaurant industry. He started coming home and staying home every night, and going to bed with me every night. Once I let him in it again, that is. He gave me all of his credit/debit cards and put his whole paycheck into our joint account. He left the restaurant and got a job landscaping. Hard, physical labor for 10 hours a day. He did it to punish himself, and he also thought he couldn't get anything better with a DUI, but it also got his head right and he's been able to completely pivot the trajectory of his, and our, life. He made a conscious effort, every single day, to not only avoid alcohol, but to actively fix everything that was broken. He still struggles with the mental baggage from his past at times, but he's been sober over 2 years and has an amazing job with a company that values his extensive skill set, and he's finally able to be proud of himself, and confident of his skills and capabilities, and I am so proud to be his wife. I get to tell him all the time what a catch he is, and he finally believes me. Just like your wife, it took about a year for me to start trusting him again, and if he had slipped up even a little I was gone, but he realized what he almost lost and that was more important to him than anything else. You made my eyes water. I want to marry my GF and hope to God she describes me in the way you have lovingly described your husband. Have an excellent day. Why is it raining on my face? I'm so proud of you for putting your foot down. As the child of an alcoholic, it makes for a truly miserable childhood and a toxic family life. I wish that, instead of yelling at him, my mother could have done what you did. Fellow child of an alcoholic, and completely agree. I didn't trust it until I saw it, and then kept seeing it, and then kept seeing it some more. Thankfully it's been 20+ years now, and I couldn't be prouder of her for putting her life, and mental health, back together. Victory hand. This comment is going to get dark for you, but here is where I see this going if you don't stop drinking completely. As another child of an alcoholic, I have seen the opposite of this success story above happen. Your daughter will choose to be with her dad, not you. She won't think twice and it will ruin your relationship with her forever if you don't decide to stop drinking. By the sounds of the post, it was only 2, they were strong. You aren't ready yet. You're still making excuses. You drank excessively, your ex didn't make you do jack shite. You are an alcoholic, not low tolerance bull. You are in denial about how bad it really is. My own father wasn't allowed to walk me down the aisle. I almost didn't invite him to the wedding at all. That is the road you are headed if you don't own your actions. No amount of rehab or counseling worked for him because he didn't want to stop. Now the only way I know he's even still alive is random Facebook posts. My mom wasn't invited to my wedding. She died from substance abuse. She will never get to see her grandbabies grow up, and she never got to meet her only grandson. Duck alcohol. My mom is not allowed in my life at all. She just tried to use my sister to get me in the same vehicle as her. My sister has her learner's permit. Neither of us live with her, but my mom specifically came over so she could get daytime hours in. My sister came over to my house and wanted to show me her driving skills. I asked her whose vehicle she was driving. She said Mom's. Asked her who she was driving with. She said Mom. I told her sorry, but I'm not in a vehicle with Mom. I told her she's out of my life permanently this time, and I meant it. I told her I'd get her some other time and let her drive my truck. The story with my mom is not only is she on drugs and abusing them, but she's also a narcissist who blames me for everything. Abandoned me at 13? My fault. She gaslights me. I never left you, you didn't want to come. We were never homeless. I never told you that you weren't smart enough to be a vet, etc. On my B-day, earlier this month, she convinced me to unblock her through multiple family members. Was unblocked for 15 minutes and she was blocked again BC. Instead of telling me happy B-day like she said she wanted to, she blamed me for everything. So I straight up told her that she will never be a part of my life again. Get married? She won't be told by me at least, and isn't invited. Birthday, Christmas? Nope, no more. Do I ever have children? She'll never meet them. She's out of my life permanently, and that's final. Yeah, blaming lesbians in general for ops alcohol problems and constant bad choices sure is something. Admittedly, I only know a few lesbians, but none of them drink heavily. I have never heard this stereotype and I do not believe it at all. This lady is so deluded. Yeah, you've never heard of it because it isn't a stereotype. Op is just delusional and grasping at straws trying to avoid accountability. Albeit, the lesbians made me do it is certainly a new one. Update 2, help. Husband thinks I cheated, but I didn't and he now wants divorce. Wanted to post the update yesterday itself, but I was too tired sorting up the mess I've made here. Previous post, or just view my posts in my profile. He came by yesterday in the afternoon. By this time I had already left my daughter with my Sil because he wanted a one-to-one talk between us. He cooked lunch for us and we ate for 5 to 10 minutes quietly. He didn't look like he was going to talk first, so I went ahead showing him that I had been to therapist. I went to therapist day before yesterday, 5 to 6 hours after I made a post here. Told him I won't drink anymore ever, not even once a year. I also showed him my plan and appointments I had booked in the AA rehabilitation center in our city, and told him I would become a better mother and wife for our daughter and for him. This whole time he was listening to me quietly while eating. There was this awkward silence again for a few moments, and then he told me, good, and asked me whether I had removed the friends that had invited me to the party. I told him I didn't, but after this I instantly messaged those friends of mine saying we can't talk anymore, and I blocked them in front of him. He then asked me my thought process that led to me to make the decision to drink there without him. I told him everything about what I had thought. He then got up, went to his car, and gave me a paper stating that if I ever drank alcohol again after what had happened on the 19th of February 2022, he would get full custody of our daughter if he got divorce. He then told me to think about it carefully and he would give me time, stating that if I signed it, our relationship would go back to how it was before the drinking incident. I immediately signed, yes, I do know what I was getting into, and gave him the paper. He also told me to read it out loud and he recorded it on his phone. After this was done, he told me to give him the divorce papers back and he threw them in the bin. He then asked me if I had any questions. I asked him about his dad. This is what he told me. In brief, his dad was an alcoholic and his food addiction has caused him to leave his alcohol. His mom divorced and he is currently trying to atone what he has done by sending his mother money he gets from his business. The atmosphere was much lighter after this and he told me it is necessary that both of us take a break from this and he needed time to recover. The break would last 2 weeks. He went to Syl's house and then drove back our daughter and left her with me. Later in the night he called me saying he's going back to Norway with his mum for 2 weeks. He said we should keep in touch on text and I should call him if there is any emergency. He's half Norwegian and Spanish. We are still in contact with each other over text. I'm now continuing with my life as I was before, going to work and leaving my daughter at school. Have a health checkup today at 3 p.m. because people mentioned it's not normal for me to get drunk that easily, so I'm just checking for precaution if there is anything wrong in my body. Note, people were going gaga over my lesbian comment and stuff, so I'm here to correct it. First of all, whether anyone likes it or not, 13 years ago the only places me and my GF used to hang out of college was in bars. Yes, I was stupid, and since there was no social media back in 2009, the way to meet other gay female couples was very hard outside of bars. People think I was stating my opinion, but no, I was simply stating what had happened in the past. People who kept on saying lesbians don't drink or whatever, well, they did in Spain at the time, so stop thinking what you have experienced now is same back then. It was completely different. Even being in a gay couple was viewed as wrong back then. Most of them used to drink a lot of alcohol to fit in. Second thing, yup, wrong wording. Thanks to the person in the reply for correcting me. I was not gay but in a gay relationship. So there you go. Third thing, my bad. Yes, I understand I was at fault and no, I wasn't trying to blame my ex. I was simply saying I was exposed to it because I was a stupid teen, so I got carried away and got the addiction. Period. So I'll be posting my last and third update after 2 to 3 weeks. Once again, big thanks to everyone who gave me a solution. I'm very grateful to you guys, especially the guy who provided his own situation and how he handled it. Gracias. He then got up, went to his car, and gave me a paper stating that if I ever drank alcohol again after what had happened on the 19th of February 2022, he would get full custody of our daughter if he got divorce. It doesn't work that way. You can't force someone to agree to give up custody of their children in the future if they drink alcohol. Even if you could, contracts aren't valid if they're signed under duress, and threatening to divorce someone if they don't sign a contract is considered coercion, which is illegal. Basically, this is either a fake story or Up and her husband don't know anything about the law. Not only that, but there's a reason you can't agree to child custody in a prenup. I mean, you can, but the court can then say, so what? A judge wouldn't give two ducks about this agreement, just about what would be in the best interests of the daughter. It's clearly fake, lol. Nah, I left my daughter's dad because he was a horrible person. I figured we were going to share custody, but the first time he had her he disappeared and I didn't see her for over a month. I was frantic. When he resurfaced he told me we could meet and I could see her. I met him and he kept a tight hold on her until I signed a piece of paper giving him custody. I signed it because I needed to hold her and was desperate. I promptly turned around and filed in court and was granted full custody, and he got visitation. Wasn't difficult as he promptly developed a drug habit after I left him. Anyway, some people really do think they can do this. It's obviously not legal, but it doesn't stop people from trying. He probably knows it doesn't really have weight in a court. Or he's an idiot. But it does 100% give weight to a later argument that she's had drinking problems for a long time and he's already given her a last chance. The courts will generally factor a history of drunken behavior in a decision. Building a legal case is about telling a story, and it is clear the husband feels he may need to tell a story that his wife has a history of being drunk, and this is evidence that supports that story. Someone involved in the situation made a legal error does not mean the story is fake. It means that not everyone is a lawyer. Even if it isn't and it's just him pulling my leg, it serves as a promise from my side, so paper or not I will allow him to take full custody if I do break what he has asked me to. You need to talk to a therapist more to get an outside, non-Reddit, opinion. Your husband is being super controlling and I think you think you're a huge alcoholic when you aren't anywhere close. Don't worry, I'm not taking Reddit that seriously, haha. I'm here for some public opinion which I might or I might not take depending upon how much substance is behind it. You shouldn't get your children involved in this. Really, if you someday do something stupid, you are willing to give up your child? This must be fake. And hey, my father was an alcoholic, I hate him, and I am rooting for you if this is real. But come on, neither of you seem to care for the child, the real victim. Well, at least take the advice to go into counseling. Are you really that willing to give up your kid? Please show your therapist your 3 posts. You need someone who gives you a healthy perspective on what is really happening in your life, and that is not an alcohol addiction but an abusive husband. Wow. Everyone is supporting this? Op says alcohol addiction, but describes it as drinking 6 times a year, a couple of drinks a time. That's not what's generally considered an alcoholic. Maybe I'm not understanding, but from how I read these 3 posts, the situation seems to be that when they got married, Op's husband told her she was strictly limited to drinking 6 times a year, and she was only allowed to drink when he was around. Op went to a party and drank 2 drinks. Someone lied to Op's husband that she left with a guy. She said she didn't. Husband left the house, refused to talk to her, and blocked her on all social media. Husband sends divorce papers to Op and asks for their daughter to be brought to him. He then proceeds to go and buy alcohol with the daughter and pour it down the sink in front of her to impress upon her how terrible it is and how she should never drink. Husband then asks their child if he should stay with Op, but only after making sure the child is made aware that her mother did something wrong. Op offers to stop drinking completely and go to a therapist. Husband then forces Op to also block all of the people at the party, aka her friends. He then gets her to sign papers saying that if she ever drinks again, they will divorce and he gets full custody of the child. WTF? So, we have a husband who is controlling. You're only allowed to drink when I say, and when I'm around. Juvenile and non-communicative, refused communication and blocks on social media. Involves their child in an argument between the parents and tells her that her mum did something wrong, not to mention the bizarre demonstration of alcohol down the sink. Isolating, forces Op to unfriend people for inviting her to a party. Forces compliance by getting her to sign over custody of her child if she doesn't perfectly follow his orders. And people on here are congratulating her for character development, mature discussions with her husband, etc. How is any of this behavior from the husband okay? I'm genuinely flabbergasted that people are good with all of this. I was so confused about the child things as well. I don't know how old she is, but it sounded like she was super young. This is going to be very traumatizing for her and the husband is setting her up against her mom. Very awful behavior. She explained that she had a history of alcohol addiction that she kicked when she got married. Those 6 times per year aren't her being addicted, she already was. Op says alcohol addiction, but describes it as drinking 6 times a year, a couple of drinks a time. If you read closer, she mentions things like 2 shots, but those shots were 350 milliliters each. She corrected it with the proper ml in an edit. You don't get blackout drunk from 2 shots. Lol, sure she did. Those were my thoughts exactly after her first update. Is Op even an alcohol addict? But she is obviously hell-bent on staying in an abusive relationship. I don't know if we're reading the same thing. She openly admits she's an alcoholic. And she didn't just have 2 drinks. She said she had 350 milliliters. I'm a 200 pounds man who drinks fairly regularly and 350 milliliters would duck me right up. She did not communicate at all with her husband that entire night because she was too hammered to even operate her phone, so he had to wait all night wondering if she was even okay. She is 100% at fault. Honestly, my gripe with him is that he had been too lenient tolerating her drinking those 6 times a year. I don't know how many alcoholics you have in your life. But if an alcoholic has friends who encourage them to drink, they are going to drink. And if she drinks, she is, rightfully, going to lose her family as a result. She can't handle alcohol. She does not have a healthy relationship with it. Op's husband has already been in a household with an alcoholic in the form of his father, and has witnessed firsthand how much it can duck up the family dynamic. Don't blame him for trying to protect himself and his daughter from that. His handling of the discussion with his daughter was bad. She's too young to be involved in a dispute between the adults in her life like that. But he's not being controlling to Op, and he's 100% in the right to try and ensure that in the case of a divorce that his daughter will not be left in the custody of a problem drinker. That's not how custody works, and it's beyond stupid to involve their child in their disputes. He is literally borderline abusive, making her sign a contract under duress, because that whole stunt has no power in the courts for deciding custody. It's all abuse to show he's in power and she's nothing. Honestly, I can see both possibilities being true, based on her posts alone. Yes, she could be an alcoholic that needed this push to take better care of herself. And in this case, his fear of living through what he lived with his dad and of subjecting his daughter to it is understandable. But although her actions that one night were wrong, they alone are proof that she has a problem with alcohol, just that night she messed up. Her admitting could be pressure from him, and Reddit. And some of his actions do sound controlling. The show he did with his daughter is not good for her, for example. I also find it weird that he had everything ready and scripted, had the paper with her promise written and ready, making her read it while he films it, saying everything will be back to normal if she signed it. How could things between them ever go back to how they were? Saying they need exactly 2 weeks away from each other. It seemed like he had this whole plan written down from start to finish, and it just seems weird, to the point I started to doubt how real this story is. I am not saying he is abusive and controlling 100%, but I don't think we have enough to say Op is alcoholic either. I hope she starts therapy and she finds a good one, so they can help her out and allow her to really realize whatever it is happening with her life and relationship. She admits it because her husband made her believe she's one. She isn't. She also changed the ML. She was wrong in her maths. How do you know if she's an alcoholic or not? I agree with this relationship sounds like a shit show and a half. 100%. This post got swayed wrong the way Op started it. This husband is insane, crazy, and controlling. She went out and had fun. She drinks 6 times a year. She doesn't have an alcohol problem as an addiction. She just doesn't know her limit. 2 completely different things. This won't end well. Reddit way off on this one. Especially after her husband has her now completely secluded from any outside contact. I was wondering exactly the same thing. Especially that contract, but as you listed more reasons, i.e. the controlling behavior, this really looks concerning. And the alcohol pouring incident with the daughter. Wish I could upvote more, plus this needs to be higher. If I only drank 3 times a year, but every time I did, cheated and got a DWI, would you concede that there is a drinking problem? You can mince semantics, but it appears her drinking is the source of problems and she doesn't seem to be in control of it. Her source of problems is her husband, who is controlling, abusive and in general toxic. Just that shit with that paper she had to sign, which is totally admissible in court and if anything only proof what kind of character that guy is. Now he has her with her back against the wall. Every time she does something that is not to his liking, presenting the shit paper to make her believe she will lose her daughter if she ever considers standing up against him. That is pure abuse. Nothing else. It doesn't matter much if she really has a drinking problem or not, and chances are pretty good that not. Must have missed the time she did that to her husband. Oh wait, she didn't. You struggle with examples? I didn't say it was her actions. What a nice straw man. No, the idea that you can't have an alcohol problem if you don't drink often is just a ducking ignorant statement. trying to put it in easier to digest concepts, but again, I give the majority too much credit. When you are an alcoholic, all it takes is one time. There's a lot of stuff you got wrong here, but I won't blame you, since you're judging him entirely on 3 posts I have written that I might have miscommunicated. My husband tries to make sure I have enough freedom. That is why I was allowed to drink in the first place, even though he has had a bad childhood because of alcohol. He's made rational decisions that have benefited both of us in the long term. We both stand on equal basis and he gives me enough space, and we are very open to any discomfort. Every decision or action he takes has a solid reason behind it. He has gone through a lot over the past 33 years, and so have I. Trying to put good habits in our daughter early on in life so she has a solid foundation to make rational decisions in the future isn't bad. He wants to make sure she doesn't go through shit like him. He is harsh and strict, but for her own good, and this has caused her to be way more mature than her age. She's my kid, and before we decided to have one, I did make sure one of us actually has knowledge about parenting, which he volunteered to do. We hope you have enjoyed today's episode. Please comment, like and subscribe. Cheers. Have a wonderful day or night, wherever you are.